Nous sommes live, oui. Nous sommes live.
Ne lance pas trop tôt, il y a encore personne.
Il y a deux personnes. C'est lancé, mais il y a deux personnes qui viennent de rejoindre. 4, 6.
Je vous entends bien, ça c'est Sabrine. Oui, Eric Hallot, Andre Jadot, il est là. Et alors, qu'est-ce qu'on a? Ah voilà, on a Benoît. Bonjour Benoît.
En 2021, c'est la même chose, c'est ça?
J'espère que non.
Oui, donc tu ne peux pas parler dans ton ordi. Hein.
Oui, c'est parti.
Ah, oui, elle doit être déjà mettre votre présentation et vous n'aurez plus qu'alors à partager l'écran.
Oui, ça, tu me diras comment.
Comment?
Pour parler avec Sabri, il faut utiliser ça.
Votre micro est juste derrière votre laptop. Juste derrière, voilà.
C'est pas moi, je suis en muet.
Moi, tout est éteint. C'est éteint, c'est éteint. Il est éteint là, il est éteint là. Bon, alors à mon avis, Geoff est en train de se tromper d'heure, ou bien il a du mal à atteindre. J'espère que vous téléphonez.
Il avait hésité, il a imaginé au téléphone, il a hésité.
À quoi?
C'est important s'il avait dit.
Ah bon?
Il va dire, bon, moi je l'ai convaincu de venir, je ne sais pas si c'est mes mots au porté.
Il va très bien, en tout cas.
Oui, en effet.
C'est que c'est mes mots au porté, alors. Et c'est pas évident à trouver. Hein.
Non, c'est pas évident à trouver.
Ici, il connaît déjà plus ça. Ah ben, il est là. Le voilà, tiens.
Ah! Ouf!
Comme au port du diable.
J'étais, oui, bon. Je ne dirais pas la suite.
Et voilà. Good to see you, Geoff.
Geoff, how are you? I was...
Yes.
It was difficult to find.
You didn't have my number. It was unusually it was the traffic.
Ok, donc dans 3 minutes, vous lancez la vidéo?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Voilà, ça c'est ma
Bon, votre GSM, s'il
présentation.
vous plaît.
Oui.
Just to let
Je pense que tout le monde a des difficultés de trouver parce que
on time.
Les gens, je crois que les jeunes du Cotasco ne sont pas là, non?
Quand j'écrase ça,
Oui,
ça va me venir comment alors? Ça va venir ici sous la barre.
Donc,
Ça c'est ma présentation.
ouais, si vous voulez,
Si je la diminue, et ça, ah oui, j'ai un screen. Et ici, c'est là que ça monte ou que ça, en fonction de. C'est ça, si vous cliquez, normalement, peut-être en bas là.
Oui, vas-y. Mais normalement, tu peux prendre un masque blanc, hein?
Ah oui, d'accord. Good. Très bien, merci. Chez moi. Je sais que c'est qu'après cette crise, c'était informatique.
Astrocode. Merveille.
Dominique, floor is yours. To start the session. 1 minute to start.
What did you say? What did you say? What did you say? Allô? Allô, Sabri?
Just can start. Yes. Dominique, you can start the video on time. We just opened the room. We are recording now.
Bon, vous lancez.
I would say the space industry is quite active and quite special.
There is no job where you don't have multidisciplinarity. You have to be curious and to not just do what people ask you to do.
Every day I start working on communicating a new project. It's a completely different world for me.
Every field you can imagine, you can find a way to have an impact in space exploration. The number one difficulty is to find what you really like and what you really enjoy. If you found what you like, then the most difficult step is already done.
So really, go for it. There's something in space that I think unites people. There's lots of countries involved there, and they all work together amazingly well. I think it's way more important than we realize. I'm hoping for a bit more women in the space industry because we are not that many, and sometimes when you see panels, it's all male and you think, okay, aren't there any great women? And yes, there are. So I'm hoping for a more diverse space community.
And to go further to the moon, to Mars, and so on.
We really produce something which people want. The data our satellites deliver to our end users is something which makes a difference even to everybody's daily life, because every weather prediction you see on your smartphone, on the TV screen, does rely on the data we deliver. And being part of that process, of that organization, is great. My job is to make sure that the original user requirements of the National Weather Services are finally being met by the satellites being flown in space. A user requirement could be, for example, a high-resolution wind speed. And requirements engineering makes sure that the final satellite, the instrument, the ground processing all work together such that the wind speeds which are produced meet the requirements of our users. I think Darmstadt, and especially the area, offers a lot for work-life balance. You can go, in 20 minutes, you are in the middle of the Odenwald, in the forest. You can go hiking, you don't see anybody. I personally do a lot of mountain biking there, and I can even cycle to work. And on the other hand, if you want to see city lights, you drive 20 minutes and you're in Frankfurt. And if you want to go even further, you're at the airport and you can basically fly everywhere from there.
I work at EUMETSAT as a remote sensing scientist, and my focus is on sea surface temperatures and sea ice surface temperatures from satellites. So I've always been interested in science and the environment, but I wanted to do something that meant something and that actually helped people. So working at EUMETSAT gave me the opportunity to combine all of these different interests. I think the job I do here makes a difference in the world, as well as affecting weather forecasts. It's also important to understand a changing climate. So we need to know the best possible knowledge of our ocean and the ocean's health so that we can monitor it and then understand how this may change in the future.
The most exciting and rewarding part of my job is obviously when we have a launch and we get the first telemetry into the ground segment we just built, and we have the first payload telemetry coming in and the first products coming out. This doesn't happen every year, but we are working several years towards such a target. I believe the job I do makes a difference, especially when you watch weather forecast on the TV in the evening, which is made with images or data we provide from EUMETSAT. And also, for example, in the recent hurricane events in Florida, we provided support to NOAA to do their own forecast and see where the hurricane would go. So I really think it makes a difference.
Since the 1980s, OIP's Sensor Systems has been an electro-optical partner for ESA. OIP developed custom-made high-performing optical payloads to provide images of planets in renowned missions, such as Proba 1, Mars, and Venus Express. Our compact visual monitoring cameras are used to monitor the effective performance of space mechanisms and to make scientific images to be studied down on Earth. OIP's spectrometers support ESA and other space partners in planet observation missions, such as Proba 5. Those spectrometers are also used by scientists to analyze the Earth, Mars, and Venus atmosphere on board of Altius, Nomad, and SWAR. If you are looking for high-performance visualization from Earth to space, OIP is your partner by excellence.
Space is part of our lives today, bringing many benefits. In the near future, space will become an even more important part of our lives. Bringing these benefits to us requires numerous technologies to work together. Application Services has been developing and enabled services, bringing the benefits of space to us.
Là, vous avez du son qui sort. Coupez le son. Oui, oui. Il y a un son qui sort du PC là.
Oui, ok, mais j'ai pas un micro.
To develop and operate equipment in space for our customers, such as the European Space Agency.
J'ai encore un micro. Je vais vous le chercher.
Our strategy is to identify the right
Voilà, mais il faut bien couper les sons, parce que sinon, ce qui
questions,
se passe, c'est que le son de votre ordi va rentrer dans le micro et vous allez faire un arsène. Je vais vous chercher le problème avec
Today, we already provide anyone regular access to space,
c'est pas un bon.
a door to research and manufacturing of novel products that do not exist on Earth.
Non.
Bon, je pense qu'il y a beaucoup.
Tomorrow, and we keep those working in space healthy and safe.
Voilà.
Je vais relancer à tous les participants.
Je fais un petit rappel pour ceux qui n'ont pas vu. Quand on parle dans un micro, il faut le tenir bien en poche. D'accord.
We provide technology for in-orbit construction of low Earth orbit space stations and platforms. These will be the industrial powerhouses driving tomorrow's emerging markets, providing advanced materials and medicines. In the next decade, not only will we harvest the resources that are plentiful in space and which are depleted or scarce on Earth, but human settlements in space will use these resources to sustain their independent lives. Our technologies are improving life on Earth by predicting space weather events that can damage our electricity grids. Our astronaut exercise devices help to rehabilitate injured persons, and our robotics replace humans in hazardous environments. This is the near future. Space Application Services will be a part of it. We'll be happy to work on this future with you.
Travailler au pôle spatial Rue du Transine, c'est faire partie d'un espace de travail stimulant, offrant de nombreuses opportunités professionnelles. Milieu à haute plus-value, le pôle accueille des entreprises internationales dédiées aux applications spatiales. D'un côté, le centre ESSec de l'Agence spatiale européenne à Redut. De l'autre, le parc d'activités économiques de Galaxia, développé par Idelux à Transine, qui comporte un centre d'entreprise, un incubateur de start-up, l'ESSec Galaxia, l'Eurospace Center, le Galileo Integrated Logistics Support Center de la Commission européenne ou encore Vitrocicet. Ingénieurs, équipes pluridisciplinaires, start-ups et étudiants, des hommes et des femmes venus du monde entier s'y côtoient chaque jour au sein d'infrastructures modernes et innovantes, d'où naissent des projets de grande envergure, comme la gestion de l'opérationnalité des stations du système Galileo. Travailler au pôle spatial Rue du Transine, c'est faire partie d'un espace de mobilité situé au cœur de l'Europe. Entouré de grands axes routiers et le long de l'autoroute E411, le pôle bénéficie d'accès fluides et rapides depuis Namur, Bruxelles, Luxembourg et tous ses environs, en voiture et via les transports en commun. Travailler au pôle spatial Rue du Transine, c'est faire partie d'un espace authentique et naturel. Lieu de gastronomie et de patrimoine, la région entourant le pôle offre des occasions de sorties variées, telles que le festival de Chasse-Pierre, la foire agricole de Libramont, Libin et son musée Mudia, ou encore le village du livre de Redut, ses infrastructures sportives modernes, son cadre naturel propice aux balades et ses nombreux lieux touristiques comme Bouillon, Bastogne, Durbuy ou encore La Roche en Ardennes. Travailler au pôle spatial Rue du Transine, c'est faire partie d'un espace culturel porté par de nombreux centres urbains rapidement accessibles. Namur, Luxembourg, Liège, mais aussi Marches, Rochefort ou Libramont. Situé à seulement 40 minutes du pôle, Namur propose une vie citadine dynamique et de multiples activités culturelles, musées, théâtres, expositions ou encore concerts. Travailler au pôle spatial Rue du Transine, c'est faire partie d'un espace de vie de qualité pour développer un réseau de connaissances et fonder une famille. Logement à prix accessible, proximité de centres hospitaliers ou encore universités, haute école et écoles internationales sont autant d'atouts essentiels pour le bien-être des habitants de la région. Vous aussi, faites partie du pôle spatial Rue du Transine. Rendez-vous dès maintenant sur invest-in-luxembourg.be.
My name is Nicolas Hartmann. I've been working for 3 months here at Vitrocicet Belgium in Transine as a ground system engineer.
My name is Lise Mouton and I am a recruiter and employer branding at Vitrocicet Belgium.
My background is engineering for 5 years, and the purpose of my job is to be sure that there are not any issues with the infrastructure on the Earth for the signal coming from the space.
Well, my background is a bachelor degree in human resources management, and I joined Vitrocicet Belgium 2 years ago, firstly with an internship of 1 year, and now for the undefined contract.
I chose Vitrocicet because I really wanted to work in the field of space, and after my master thesis, they asked me if I wanted to join the team, and I said yes directly.
First of all, I was afraid because I didn't know nothing from the space domain, but all the colleagues explained me their job, the duties.
I loved space for a long time now, so I wanted to work in not only for patients, but to work. Every day is different because you don't know what really you have to do. Sometimes you have to plan to go on travel somewhere. Sometimes you have to work on a project.
I chose to join the company because they were open to have a junior profile.
What I really like here, it's a family-sized company, so it's not too big. So it's really easy to talk with people if you have an issue or something.
Everyone knows everybody. We are around the same age, and there is a good atmosphere, good ambience.
They have strong knowledge in the Galileo program. So for a young engineer as me, it's really interesting.
It's exciting to work for a space company. Everyone can have an access to join the space domain. So why not you?
Space and its exploration has fascinated humans since centuries. We send a few space probes in the solar system. We have even sent robots and rovers on Mars surface to explore it. And we even had a few city trips on the moon. We also have people living in space in the International Space Agency every day since a couple of years now. But the next step, the step further to learn more about space is definitely to go on Mars and to have manned exploration of Mars. How easy is it? Can we just take our lunch packet with us and go on Mars? No, definitely we cannot do that because we need for our life oxygen, water, and food. And those elements represent massive amount of weight that we cannot just send on Mars. So we need to recycle the true waste to be able to sustain their life during space exploration, long-term space exploration. And this was the idea that was developed in the MELISA project by the European Space Agency 25 years ago now. In the MELISA project, the scientists are trying to build an artificial ecosystem that will allow recycling all true waste, urine, CO2, but also fecal materials if needed, to produce oxygen, water, and food to sustain life of crew during years of mission. In the University of Mons, we are working on oxygen production based on cyanobacteria using different nitrogen sources. The University of Mons also participate to this space exploration and try to develop new methods to follow and optimize oxygen production by those microorganisms. Those projects also have a lot of application on Earth because treating nitrogen waste, urine for example, using cyanobacteria is also a major challenge for space, but also for Earth application. If you want to learn more about this, just follow my talk about the MELISA project and the human's implication in producing oxygen in space using cyanobacteria. See you.
Well, good evening. Good evening to Switch to Space 3. I will make some interviews to know why did you were interested by space and how did you come to switch to space?
Okay. Yes. So I have been working for European Space Agency for 2 years in the Department of Galileo in navigation. And I have an engineering background. And there I was working for the strategic part for the new activities of R&D and how we can develop more the technology for the second generation of Galileo. Also, I have done some research also in the Earth observation for Copernicus data and how we can use them as well in combination with navigation data. And I think that I would like to work more on that mission, let's say, to use space data and infrastructure that's already there for improvement of daily life of Europe citizens as well, not worldwide, but also spread the EU spirit, let's say. Yeah. So it's very interesting, and I think it's going to be the future, the space domain, as we can see already for telecommunications, navigation is already there.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you. And you?
Hello, my name is Leonore, and I'm recently graduated as a Master of Space Studies student. I will start working next week at OIP Sensor Systems, and actually I think there should be more women in space, so this is a good place to start.
Good idea. Thank you, and good luck for your new professional life.
Hi, my name is Antonio, and I just made a mid-career switch. So I come from a different sector than space, and I want to get acquainted to all the current topics in space policy and so on. And I'm an engineer in my background, and I'm trying to reconnect to that topic.
Okay, thanks. And you?
My name is Charles, and I'm still a bachelor student, so not in the space of environment yet. But what I feel is very interesting about space is that this is a very dynamic work environment, and the things are moving, and you have to be at the cutting edge of your field to be there.
And the goal is to work in the space sector later?
Yeah, maybe if I have the opportunity to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, I'm Nina, and I'm a biology student. I'm interested in space research, but I'm not really aware of this sector. It's just to be knowing more subject about that I'm here today.
Okay, thanks a lot. I will ask our professionals now. How did you come to space? What's happened to come to space?
Yeah, so for me, space has always been super attractive. Obviously, you have the exploration part, the fact that you have all those high technologies and the state of the art. But what I found very amazing about it is the fact that sometimes just a single project can have, it's one of the very few fields when one project can have a huge impact for everyone on Earth. And I found that it's very crazy that we find it. And it's only in the space industry where one satellite can bring so much for so many people.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Mohamed. And you?
Thank you. Well, I've been involved in the space sector since 1985. So for 35 years, and I never left the space sector. I was in the private sector working for Alcatel, but it was still for the space sector. Also in the Belgian administration for the space sector. In the cabinet of Herman van Rompuy, when he was president of the European Council during 5 years, it was not only space, but it was also space. It was a little bit by chance in the beginning, by chance joining a cabinet, and they say, well, if you feel something for this file, you just do it. And so I did it.
So it's from the cabinet?
Yes, in the beginning, yes.
Okay, thank you, Michel. And you, Geoff?
Yeah, I will talk about my path, my career in my presentation, but I guess I came into space because I was an engineer. I was a radar engineer, and I had the opportunity to work on Europe's first radar satellite, EARSC, and that's what really brought me into space, I guess.
Okay, that's it. Thanks. Oops. And you, Andre?
So I always had a passion for maps, geodata. I joined Eurosense in 1990, so 30 years ago. So I've always been active in spaceborne activities, airborne activities. And then in 2010, I did a sidestep for 5 years, went a little bit lower in the chain. I went to the drones. In 2010, it was very, very hot at that time. It was really a startup activity. So I joined a small company, which was later on sold to an American NASDAQ company. It was a very interesting experience. And then I came back to Eurosense in 2015.
What made the difference? Why space?
The difference is why? Because I think the purpose is that your users can take better decisions based on the data that you provide. It's very, very important. So everybody's talking now about data. Data are very hot. Data science officers everywhere. So geodata, it's becoming a very hot sector. We come from the geography, which was like 10, 20 years ago, was not the most attractive sector, but now in the geodata, it's very attractive. And why is it attractive? Because it allows to your users, they can take better decisions.
Yes, this is now, but the first time you are attracted by space, when it was?
It was really, that's a very, very long time ago. It's really from the passion for maps. That's where it comes from. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And you?
I discovered satellite data during my master thesis. I'm a geographer and cartography is the art of my job. And I discovered that it was not possible to go always on the field. And satellite data was a kind of new source of cartography, a new age of cartography. And for me, everybody now uses cartography on the smartphone and so on. And for me, the last year was a transformation of my job. It was a kind of 2.0 or 3.0 mapping, a new geography. And that's why I was very excited with this kind of data.
Okay, thank you. So we will start a switch to space too, but we are here in a marvelous building, Bibliothèque Solvay. I don't know if the camera can show how this place is so marvelous. Well, good evening. Good evening. This is the last day of the second edition of Switch to Space. During 8 days, we had the ambition to make you discover numerous possibilities of jobs in the space sector, just to help you to make the best choice in your future career. We hope this has been helpful. This would not have been possible without the collaboration of our 42 space experts. We thank them warmly. But for this topic 8, you are really many of you have joined us, some from very far countries. And I checked today, it's for example, Brazil, Mexico, Pakistan, Colombia, Canada, and of course, many European countries, which Belgium, of course. I put this in here. So, and this is great. This means that space lingers beyond the borders. Students and young professionals, this event is made for you. And do you know why? We have been in numerous universities with space experts, and we have observed that most of you love to watch launches of new spacecraft, love movies and pictures from space, love to see astronauts working on a rocket, but many of you don't think to embark on a career in the space sector. And this is strange. It's not only strange, it's unfortunate, as the sector is in good shape and continues to actively recruit. So where is the problem? You are attracted by space, but you don't think to work in the space sector. And I see personally 2 reasons. The first one, the sector is too discreet and it stays too much into its inner cycle. The second reason, the career perspective within space greatly expands today into numerous fields: medicine, agronomy, biology, economy, defense, security, law, application. And the diversity of its scope is not yet well known, and it's still difficult for many students and young professionals to find an overview of the numerous possibilities in jobs in the space sector. Reason why the super Belgium Switch team decided to launch the second edition of Switch to Space. The topic today is about satellite. We use them every day. The speakers will share once last time with you their expertise, explain various opportunities of career prospect in space. They will share insights into the individual path, their job, their vision of the future, and this in an accessible way. But due to the COVID situation, 3 of our speakers are not allowed by the organization to come on site, but they will be with us remotely, except for Eric Morel, who is traveling to Stockholm and is replaced by Michel Pratt. So thank you, Michel, to be here. So to conclude this introduction, a message to keep in mind, and keep it in mind, I think it's really important. In the next future, most of the jobs will be linked to space. Yes, switch to space, definitely, it's the key that opens the path of the possible. Make your professional life exciting and enjoy switch to space too. Thank you. I will present now Mohammad Iran Manesh, who is with me, the leader of the topic 8. And Mohammad is member of Switch to Space from a long time. And since this year, he is part of the executive team. So we are happy to welcome here. So Mohammad is a space systems engineer with a strong engineering background. He completed his dual degree at l'Université Catholique de Louvain and is a super-héros with a certificate in management of innovation from HEC Paris. He has since led the technical work of a range of projects for ESA involving space hardware at all stages of the project lifecycle. He also co-founded Light.Space, a Belgian startup providing a novel platform of microgravity research using glider parabolic flights. That's right, huh? Using okay. And beside this, Mohammad, it is important too, and I'm happy he's with us. Mohammad is also the national point of contact in Belgium for Space Generation Advisory Council. I will give the floor to Mohammad to present our chair of the topic 8, Geoff. So you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Dominique. And so for those who don't know, Dominique Tillmans is the chair of EUSpace, who, after a career of 27 years in politics, marked by very active involvement in the space sector through chairing the Space Group Senate and leading the European Interparliamentary Space Conference. She launched EUSpace in 2014 in order to bring students and Belgian space experts together. And she's currently the chair of EARSC and VP of the International Aeronautical Federation, among many other things. So thank you very much, Dominique. And I also have the extreme pleasure of introducing the chair of Topic 7, Mr. Geoff Sawyer. So Geoff is a strategic advisor to the board of the European Association of Remote Sensing Companies and previously the Secretary General of the EARSC since 2011. During his long career, and very varied career, he has held many senior management positions in the space industry with Asrium, EADS, Airbus, as well as numerous representative positions in the UK and Europe. In his early career, Geoff was the radar systems engineer for ERS-1 and NVSAT, and later became a vice president for the space strategy of EADS. He also spent 3 years working for the European Commission, where he was responsible for supporting space policy. And that's why we're very, very happy to have Mr. Geoff Sawyer to be chairing the topic today.
So thank you very much, Mohammed, and thank you very much, Dominique, for this honor to chair this session. I think it's very impressive what you're doing. There's definitely a skills shortage in the space sector, and anything we can do to help fill that and create enthusiasm to join the sector in the future is really, really welcome. I'm struck, one of our audience mentioned women in space. So again, I'm struck by the gender balance on the floor and on the panel. This is, I think, a reflection of history. And we do see it changing. And hopefully you'll be part of the change that will wash across. In EARSC, we have very positive gender balance, and there are a number of women there who are very keen on this subject. So I encourage you to make contact and to join the network of women in space.
More than every day, space is touching our lives, and we have a good balance of speakers today to explain the different ways in which that is happening. And I don't think it could be a more exciting time to start a career in space. Increasingly, we're shifting from, actually I should have my presentation going, shouldn't I? Strange times. Where's my share screen? There. No. Voila. So it's a pleasure to talk today. In a recent webinar that I was chairing, we run a session called EO Cafe, which is an informal networking event. And one of the attendees asked about the moon and when we would be returning to the moon and the future there. And the panelists were very quick to respond that they believe that in the next 30 years there will be a lunar economy that will develop.
We don't see you on the okay.
Okay. Yeah, this computer is not the ideal one for doing Zoom meetings, unfortunately. I've got a nice setup at home now to deal with the new situation. But this computer is not good. So our discussions today will focus more on the ground and how space applications are benefiting through the citizens. We should develop a picture of space technology in our everyday lives. We should talk about future challenges and how exploration will drive things in the future and further change our lives on Earth. But I think the main thrust of our talks will be about how space infrastructure, i.e. satellites, is transforming our everyday lives. So after the introduction that I'll carry on to give, we'll turn to the first two speakers, Pascal Claudel and Michel Pratt, who I'll introduce in due course. But I was asked to tell you a bit about my own career. So I use the images of space to help populate that. I'm 67 going on 68, so I've been almost 50 years in the industry. I joined it in 1975, so I can give you, what, 10 years, Michel? But the time has flown by, and quite honestly, I think we've had a lot of fun along the way. I've spent my whole career in space, apart from 5 years in the defense sector, which of course is very, very close. And as I said, my background is really as a radar engineer. Firstly as an engineer, but then I became a radar engineer. So 50 years ago, space was really about research in every sense. It was about research on what space consists of, astronomy. It was about exploration. The technology was all about research. It was about understanding what we could do with space. But in those 50 years, it's been transformed. And now it is very much a business activity, which is present in our lives to an ever-increasing extent. And I come from business, and the association that I help create and work for still, EARSC, is about helping businesses do more work in Earth observation. It's driven by digital and other technologies, and that has made a massive difference to the sector. But the next 50 years you can shape. Earth science, climate, moon, Mars exploration, asteroid mining, etc., etc. The opportunities are almost endless. But as I said, I was asked to talk about me. It's not something I do very often. So I'm recently semi-retired. I've gone from an engineering background to becoming a strategist, passing many different points along the way and in the passing many countries as well. I was born and educated in the UK, but I now live and work in Belgium and have been here for about 20 years. How did I get here? From my own background, Earth observation is going to be the focus of what I'm talking about. But just this, say it's almost 50 years, but a colleague recently opened a file, a shared file on our Dropbox, our common Dropbox, which gave her the information that I modified this file 419 years ago. So time really has flown. I said I was born and brought up in the UK, in the southwest of England, right on the edge of Dartmoor. Dartmoor was my passion when I was young, along with sports. I love walking, and that really introduced me to maps. Walking on Dartmoor, you need to understand maps. You need to understand where you are. Before maps, they had these stone crosses. There were about 100 on the moor, and they acted as signposts to guide people for about 300-400 years ago. And then when I was 16, this happened, and that was obviously inspiring. I stayed up all night. I can remember staying up all night and watching it on a very, very blurry television screen. This is a much, much better picture than I had at the time. And although that didn't really lead me to space, it confirmed my interest in engineering. So I went to the University of Southampton. I studied engineering there. That also introduced me to Southampton Football Club, where I'm still a passionate fan. This was the last match at their previous ground at the Dell. Somewhere I'm in that crowd on the pitch, but exactly where, I don't know. I studied electronics. Today, electronics is, as you would see on the left of that picture. In my time, it was more as you see it on the right. And what you can see on the right today would fit on the head of a pin. And you know, it's transformed the capability, and that's reflected in the change of technology in space as well. So on the left-hand side, you have the first European satellite launched by the French, Spot, in 1986. On the right, you have a Dove, which is a Planet Labs satellite, not producing exactly the same performance, but the model is different because the idea is planets are launching hundreds of the Doves. And with the hundreds of the Doves, they can produce images and a capability which is different to, but equally interesting to Spot. So the technology has changed enormously and has driven what we're doing. But my interest was radar. So I was the radar designer for the first European, in fact, the truly European remote sensing satellite, because this was built by ESA. The synthetic aperture radar. The antenna is at the bottom of the screen there. The horizontal bar is a 10-meter long radar antenna. The other two, like ears, are the scatterometer antennas. And the first image that came out was this over the Netherlands, and people thought, well, what is it? You know, what do you do with this? Because it's a granular, it's very hard to interpret and very different from a camera in space, which is what Spot was, with a very big zoom lens. But radar
Hello, do you hear us?
Yes, now we hear you.
So we are talking from GSA Prague. I don't know if somebody else wants to talk. Should we start the video?
You can start. We have at least.
So should I start the video? And
Mr. Sawyer,
should I start?
Finish his presentation?
I don't know.
No, we're sorry, but good afternoon, everyone. We have an issue with the network, and so we restart only now, but we don't know where we are in the conference.
You can just start.
Okay.
You can just start. We see a presentation.
Yeah, okay. So, first of all, I would like again to thank you, Dominique Tillmans and a team for inviting the GSA to this conference. So, as I say on Monday, it's a great pleasure to encourage the young and coming generation to share our passion of space. And so today around the table, you have also the European Space Agency. And so I would like to underline both agencies are fully complementary and work well together with a clear distribution of tasks. And today we will detail the activity of the GSA. It's okay. Yes, being strongly on the business is the presentation of today. The detail of this presentation will be performed by Renard Blasi in charge of these activities inside the market development team. I would like to say also the space is not only the ground and space infrastructures with satellite and stations, but also space is in your daily life, as Mr. said, through the data and signal coming from space, and this in all sectors of economy. You will see that in the presentation. So with EGNOS and Galileo, we are key actors also in the environment by optimization of trajectory. And so you will see with the EU space program, you can serve aviation, road, agriculture, and so on. And this example allows me to open the door to the key innovative initiative of the European Commission as Green Deal and digitalization, which offer huge perspective for tomorrow. In the EU, we have all tools today to create innovative solutions to answer to this request of the European Commission. With the navigation system by satellite, Galileo and EGNOS, you know where you are. With Earth observation system, Copernicus, you know what you have around you. And with telecommunication system, you can connect everyone everywhere. So the synergy between all these programs of the EU offer assets to SMEs and startups in the EU to create a wide range of products to cap market shares all over the world. And so I'm going to leave the floor to Renard now to detail opportunities in all segment markets you could have. And also, I would like to say, liking space and agriculture is not incompatible, the same with space and bank. And we will see with data coming from space, you can share both passions. So thank you a lot, and don't hesitate to have a lot of questions to Renard. Thank you.
Thank you, Pascal. Thank you, Geoff, for the introduction. I think we lost you. I hope we didn't now jump and cut you, but just fill a gap, and then we will have you hopefully back also acoustically. So what I will do in the next minutes is to give you a broader perspective how we see the topic satellites. You use them every day, and put it in perspective, as Pascal was saying, for markets, but also for the political agenda, and ultimately for you, because you are the new generation, and hopefully we can inspire you to join the space family. Now, this one you might have seen the day before yesterday already. We are a small but growing agency. Today we are in charge of EGNOS and Galileo. Tomorrow also of downstream market uptake in Copernicus. And our mantra is linking space to user needs in order to make sure that the space program delivers what the different users across all markets need. This is basically the future. We will transform from GSA to EUSPA, the EU agency of the European Space Program. And what does that mean? You see here basically that with the new regulation, space data and services are at the heart of how we see it as a technological revolution. The new components of the EU space program you see below. So I mentioned already Galileo and EGNOS, that's today. Tomorrow it will be Copernicus, the number one world provider of space data and information already as we talk. GovSatcom, that's secure satellite communication for e-security actors. You have heard a dedicated session on this one in particular on Monday. And space situational awareness that's on the horizon and will need to materialize and crystallize further. As I mentioned, and as Pascal also put in the bigger context, what we do, we see and interpret as part of the EU key priorities. Here, just an example, but important example, the European Digital Strategy or digitization and the European Green Deal. Now, these are big words and they are quite in the public domain and being talked and written about a lot. What is important to see that when we talk about space, we see this bigger picture. We see the big priorities, the big challenges, be it global warming, if we talk about the European Green Deal, be it the digital transformation for the digital strategy, and all of these, of course, are highly technological relevant and that's well beyond space. So we talk about space and artificial intelligence, IoT, of course, quantum computing, high performance computing in general, and all of this taking into account all the different market segments, the different components of the EU space program, we see as a huge opportunity for everyone, for the member states, for the industry, for the startups, for SMEs, and then most and foremost also for the young generation, and that means you. Just some numbers. As you know, we have many satellites already in orbit today. Some more are in the pipeline. Most of them are launched already. We have an increasing investment into the EU space program that you can see on the second chart. That also reflects the importance, the strategic importance that space has for Europe. We talk about many jobs. We have more than 250,000 jobs supported by the space industry. And this is more than just building and launching rockets. And I'm pretty sure all of you, most of you at least, will have a Galileo device in your pocket. We have 1.5 billion Galileo-enabled devices, most of which are mobile phones. When we talk about Copernicus, we see that 60% of the European Earth observation companies are using it, and this enables us to create 10% of their revenue. Now, just to put it further in context, I mentioned before the European Digital Strategy, the European Green Deal. Of course, we have something to put on the table that is supporting this. Just think about autonomous vehicles, smart solutions, 5G networks that is being deployed. And just two examples, we talk about the so-called Galileo differentiators. One that will for sure push positioning further is the Galileo High Accuracy Service that is designed to provide a 20 centimeter position and accuracy based on the signal in space only. When we mention Copernicus, just one data, we talk about 16 terabytes of data daily. If you now treat this data with artificial intelligence in the bigger frame of big data, you can imagine the tremendous value you can get out of that. But in order to do that, we need innovators, we need bright minds, and hopefully you will be one of those. Now, it is touching different spaces of our everyday life when we talk about space. I will just name some examples. I will not read the slide to you. You can see that yourself. But we heard in the beginning by Pascal, precision agriculture. Agriculture might sound a bit like archaic. The contrary is true. It's one of the earliest adopters of space technology. Interestingly enough, for both, not only for EGNOS and Galileo, but also for Copernicus. The car industry talks about autonomous vehicles, autonomous driving. Farmers, they already have it basically. It touches us when we are in need. We talk about the area of natural disasters, when we need quick replies. There again, both programs, Copernicus and Galileo, are already contributing by giving precise position, but also valuable information, what is happening around. Plus, Galileo also has a search and rescue service that basically helps you to get heard, even if you have no connectivity, for example. I could go on, but the message here being it is touching our very lives on a daily basis. Now, we heard the many segments that we talk about when we talk about, in particular, GNSS, but then also even more so when we talk about Copernicus. You see on the left-hand side our key segments today. And on the right-hand side, the technology trends that we see and that we follow, most of which are even touching more than only one of those segments. I just mentioned before autonomous cars, autonomous vehicles, it should be more precisely drones, being a market that is taking off since years. Big data, we heard before, upcoming IoT, but also mHealth applications and so on and so forth. So it's a highly exciting technological driven, but user needs driven markets. Sometimes we hear, or you will hear, space market or the GNSS market. That does not exist. Many markets, almost all of them, have a component of space in carrying inside. Here you see in the middle a picture, just a hint. Our technology report will be published shortly, where you see much more information in this regards. The examples, without going too much into detail, agriculture. Here you see what you have seen before, how this works for agriculture. You see that almost all the technologies that you have seen in the slide before play a role in agriculture, involving both Earth observation, Copernicus, and EGNOS and Galileo. The same is true when we talk about smart cities, smart everything. Everything is smart. Without navigation, positioning, without timing capabilities, and without the numerous information that you can win on managing, for example, a city coming from Copernicus, you will not be smart. So these are technologies combined with the other ones we heard before that are future-proof. So it is safe to say that the opportunities in the segment and in the area will increase as we move forward. Now we are all EU citizens. How does it help us? Just some numbers to stress what I was just saying. Especially here on GNSS, it helps us move, of course. You see the numbers below, 80,000 flights delays and 20,000 diversions avoided in Europe, thanks to EGNOS in particular. We talk about tremendous amounts of CO2 saved or fuel saved. It helps us to work. You can imagine that navigation capabilities have become as important as running water and the internet. And you see below why, just one number. We talked about agriculture before. Thanks to these technologies, we have 4,500 tons of pesticides or 1.5 million tons of fertilizers saved. And last but not least, it is fun. So it has a lot of impact also in our everyday lives, leisure time. Further numbers, I will not read them to you, but the message being that we are widely adopted when it comes to EGNOS and Galileo. We are not there. There are other areas where we still have work to do, but tremendous success has been already achieved. Now, when we talk about future ready, as I just did 1 minute ago, these are the big areas that are also reflected in our everyday work, where we want to share and support. We talk about a competitive edge. So Galileo is a new kid on the block. That means it's state of the art. At the same time, we are already working hard in designing the next generation of satellites. We do research and innovation. We have Horizon 2020. We will have Horizon Europe, and we are shaping and leveraging these programs in order to get real results in the market. Climate change, it's a mega topic, and we see how we can basically, thanks to Copernicus, as we have seen, and thanks to Galileo, as we have explained, fight the climate change. And in a bigger perspective, there we see EU as a global actor, and space is giving the strategic resilience and independence in order to achieve this. The user technology report, I mentioned it, coming soon, coming very soon. Watch out. And pre-register, you see the link here below, pre-register, so you will be notified in a matter of some days, and you can be one of the first ones to download and get further inspired. Technology report sounds boring. I can promise you it is not boring. You don't have to be a rocket scientist, but you will see surprisingly situations or let's say interdependencies of the different technologies that we have just mentioned here before shortly, and also will learn and understand how this impacts the different markets and thus also your career perspectives. Now, talking about the young generation, there are opportunities for us targeting at the young. Since many years, it's at our heart to basically invest and inspire students. Here you see some of our prizes and competitions that we have out there. Please visit our website and you will see more details on how you can also profit from that. And I talked about Horizon 2020. I would like to add the Fundamental Elements program that is targeting at receivers and devices. We have Aviation Grants program that have as aim to have EGNOS basically all over Europe in order to have aviation safer for everyone. And then we also have H2020, as mentioned earlier. Right now, an interesting call is out there about the Green Deal, and we talk about a fundamental budget of almost €1 billion. This is open right now. to conclude and also to leave you the floor for your questions, please visit our website. We have different and many career perspectives. I mentioned we will be transforming towards OISPA that will rather increase these opportunities. Please get inspired and keep being informed what we can also offer you in concrete terms. With this, I would like to thank you very much, and Pascal and I will be happy to answer to your questions.
Thanks, Reinhard and Pascal. That was a great overview of the agency. Just a question that's come up, just to the organisers. I presume that presentations will be made available, yes. So presentations will be made available on the website afterwards. And whilst you're, Reinhard or Pascal, I presume you're staying with us. But there's a question regarding communications. Perhaps we could just, do you have a comment on how important the communications sector is to the industry?
Yes, regarding the telecommunication system, and more particularly a secure telecommunication system, is the new activities for the GSA in the 7 coming years. And we have started on these activities as of the beginning of this year by the preparatory action. As you know, in the EU, we have several member states with these capacities. The objective of the EU telecommunication system is to gather all means of these member states, and after to share the available capacity to the other member state. And today we work on that. We have a study to understand well what is the requirement of the 27 member states and how we can put in place a GovSatcom hub. And so it's a new program. It's very interesting, and it's why on Monday I said to this young generation, it's new program, and so it's a good idea to start by it.
Okay, thanks. Maybe I just add a comment to that because you know, I used to work for Airbus, for Astrium. The communication sector is very, very important for the industry. It's very commercial, so it's largely in the commercial sector, which is why perhaps it doesn't feature so much in the institutional pictures that have been presented just now. Although, as Pascal says, GovSatcom is now slated to be worked on over the next few years. It's a sector that was very, very dynamic, has gone up. European industry is very strong in the sector for communication satellites. It's gone through a bit of a slump recently. A lot of the interest is now on small satellites, Starlink and OneWeb, which are with internet connectivity. But it's certainly a very important sector for the space industry, and one I'm sure that will continue to be so. I don't know, Michel, do you want to add anything on that? Okay. So we had a technical hitch with Zoom. We had to restart Zoom, and thank you, Pascal and Reinhard, for sort of jumping into the void. I'm going to go back to my presentation. Michel says I should go back to 1975, but I won't do that. I'll start in around 2000. So just let me go back to sharing my screen. Then I need. Yeah. Okay. So I talked about how I came to Brussels to work on GMES, and that Copernicus started at a small town called Beveno on Lake Maggiore. It's not a coincidence because the Joint Research Centre, which is the research centre for the Commission, is located just on the other side of Lake Maggiore, which is why Beveno was selected as the location for the meeting. That has led us to Copernicus, Europe's Eyes on Earth, where we have 6 Copernicus services supplied to the public sector in Europe, but also available for anyone to use. Many of those are leading to commercial activities as well. They're backed up by 6 Sentinels, 6.5 Sentinels, which are now all have examples in orbit. So that's Copernicus. After Copernicus, I spent some more time in Brussels as an advocate, as a lobbyist, if you like to call it that, for working for Astrium and what was to become EADS. Then I moved to EADS, to Paris, to become a strategist for space in headquarters of what's now Airbus. And I also became head of group business intelligence. So here you have 2 high-resolution optical pictures of Paris. The one on the right you'll recognize, the one on the left, possibly some of you, is the Parc des Princes and the age of Roland Garros. And then after spending 5 years in Paris and commuting, so just to say that previously to going to Paris, I was living in the UK and traveling back and forth between the UK and Brussels. Then I was living in Brussels and traveling forth back between Brussels and Paris. And certainly the global nature of the industry involves quite a lot of traveling and of traveling not just in Europe, but globally. But in 2011, I decided to take a form of early retirement from Airbus. I'd been with EARSC for many, many years, since it was formed, almost since it was formed in 1989. But I took over as the Secretary General, and in that time have grown EARSC to the 12 person. So it was a sort of an entrepreneurial activity, even though EARSC is a non-profit association which represents the industry. So EARSC has 125 companies, all members of the network. Is a very dynamic, a very important network to bring together the companies which are dealing with Earth observation. Some of the activities there, we like to support startups. We have an accelerator program, which is to help companies and individuals come into the sector. But one of the activities that I particularly like, I had a hand in the early days, is looking at the value in Earth observation. So we have satellites which are launched, very expensive programs, and to justify their presence and their investment, we need to understand what value they're creating. So I work with ESA to run a project which is looking at different services. It's very much a bottom-up approach. We look at where a product or service is being used and what impact that is having on the industry, on the public sector around, and on society. So I've just got 3 examples here to show you using INSAR. So as I said, I was a radar engineer. INSAR is a very exciting application. So the first one is around a ground motion service in Norway. Here, the INSAR, the maps which are generated using Sentinel-1 imagery, are used to show where the ground is moving. Now, you can see on the left, the crack, this is the bridge just at the mouth of a tunnel in Norway, in a place called Tonsberg. Tunnel was built 12 years ago. Ever since it was built, cracks were appearing, and no one could understand why cracks were appearing. They spent a lot of money patching up the cracks or filling the ground, but what they learned using INSAR was that it wasn't just the tunnel, it was the whole area that was moving. So on the right, you have an INSAR map. Green is stable, it's not moving. Yellow, red are places that are moving. And what's happening here is it's a glacial moraine, which is actually sliding down into the sea. The tunnel is anchored very strongly on its piles, 70-meter deep piles. But the ground outside is moving, so the entrance to the tunnel is cracking. And so INSAR was the only technology that would lead to do that. If we look at the benefits, we calculate a benefit to Norway of between 4 million and 8 million euro per annum. We looked at a similar situation in the Netherlands. Here it's not glacial, so there were no moraines, but around the Rotterdam area, the gas supply company was having problems because the houses are well anchored, again, deep on piles, but the ground is sinking, clay subsoil. So using INSAR, they're able to look and see where the movement is taking place, and hence they can plan where the connections or the pipes might break and introduce a remedial activity, maintenance activity. And then finally, we just completed a study looking at similar use of the technology in Spain, where water authorities are abstracting water from underground aquifers. That's leading to subsidence, and that can be monitored using satellite technology. The advantage of INSAR is you can monitor a large area, even to the extent of the whole country and shortly the whole of Europe, to a very high precision, millimeter accuracy. Millimeters of movement on the ground can be detected using the radar instrument from space. Even though it's my background, it's truly amazing how that works. And then because we're in Belgium, we also did a case looking at the monitoring and the use of Sentinel-2 data, in this case, optical data, to help the Belgian fleet, the potato growers, particularly the frozen food sector, which is very important to the country. So again, there's a strong benefit to the economy as a result of using satellite data. So in conclusion, it's one career, many opportunities. Advice would be to know which direction you want to go in, but keep looking out for opportunities, and when you see something, take it. Learn, build a portfolio of skills, and have fun along the way. So then I'm going to...
Thank you. There is a question here.
Okay. So is space data available for free? Yes and no. Yes, space data is available for free. That coming from the Copernicus program is made available through a free and open data policy. There are a number of sources to find that, and if anyone wants more information, I'm happy to help afterwards. Other data delivered commercially, of course, is not free, but that has different characteristics, different benefits. And if you're looking to get started, the data coming from Copernicus is extremely rich and extremely useful. So now I'd like to move to our next speaker, Michel Pratt. Michel, I have a bio to introduce you, but you introduced yourself earlier, so maybe I will just skip that. Michel is head of the Brussels office for ESA, the European Space Agency, after a long career, politically oriented career in Brussels. And I'll leave him to talk about the future of work in the space sector. Thanks, Michel.
Thank you. Try to find my presentation back.
Okay. You find it? You share the screen? Yeah.
That's not mine. Ah, yes, here I am.
Yes.
Okay.
Then,
So, thank you. First, before I start, I would like to pay tribute to you, Dominique, because a lot of people have a lot of ideas. You just made that your idea is becoming reality, and that you push so hard that it's even becoming tradition. So really, I would like to pay tribute to you and to your initiative and what you are doing for space. I think that's very, very important. So the future of work in the space sector after the COVID, that is a presentation that is written by my friend Eric Morel, who cannot be here. So I'm going to present his slides and to comment his slides, but here and there, I will allow myself to change a little bit and to have my own comments on his presentation. The COVID crisis in the space sector. It's worth to tell that the space sector was, as you know, severely hit by the crisis. Not, for instance, as severe as the aeronautic sector, for instance, but still it was the impact on the space sector was very, very important. And space industry facilities and production plants shut down for weeks, and especially, and this is very important, in the southern of Europe. So you can have problems, for instance, in Italy, you had enormous problems, in Spain, you had enormous problems, and this is creating discrepancy between industry also. So the role of ESA was very important to counter these effects, but I will come back to this a little bit later. So what was the situation in the space sector and in industry? You see that all ESA contracts, and it are around 5,000 contracts, were impacted. So there were also force majeure declarations, companies that faced severe financial and supply issues, and the impact, and it's a figure coming from Olivier Lemaitre, my friend Olivier Lemaitre, and from Eurospace. The impact on the European space industry could be estimated at the level of 1.5 billion euros. This was for the first wave, if I may say so, of the COVID crisis. And I still do hope that there is not another wave coming, because otherwise it will increase this figure with another amount. So let's hope that this can be not over, but that we should take into consideration the lessons learned of the past crisis or the crisis of the beginning of the year. ESA's reaction to the COVID crisis, we took action immediately, and we can see there the prime role of the institutional market. You know, we live in a world where everybody is speaking about new space. New space is fine. I didn't hear a convincing definition of what it is or what it was, but as to me, okay, it's fine to speak about new space, but you should not forget that without what I could call the institutional space, without the European Union, without ESA, without EUMETSAT, without all the actors, the institutional actors in space, this COVID crisis could have been much worse than it is. It could have been a disaster. I'm also used to speak about Mama ESA. It's a little bit going perhaps too far, but it's important to know that ESA had a role, and this role was also to take care of industry and to say, okay, you are living in a crisis, but we are together trying to do something. We are together trying with the digital tenders, with other formulas, with better payments, with advanced payments, time to payment, reducing time to payment, and so on. We are going in ESA to make your life easier in this difficult period. It was more than useful. I should remember also that we had, even in this period, a procurement of Copernicus, of the Copernicus program, of about 6 billion. And that was possible even in this very difficult period. So ESA adapted. It's also his way of working. In the presentation of Eric, and here is the moment where I should not disagree, but put other accents. You see that there is rapid development of teleworking. I should say, unfortunately, but I will come back to this later on. Digitalization, and that is the good way of, for instance, in the procurement processes. That was a very positive thing of digitalization and of rapidity in the system. So lessons learned at ESA from the crisis. Most of staff, you see it there, first line, 84% consider that their job is compatible with teleworking. I myself don't agree with that. I mean, but as it was explained before, I'm a sort of diplomat. I'm in Brussels taking care of the relations between the European Space Agency and the European Union. If you cannot drink a coffee with someone, if you cannot go to lunch with someone, if you cannot share a meeting where you look to the faces and where you see when the meeting is going wrong, when you say, this guy or this lady could help me, she's silent, so I could interrupt the meeting for 10 minutes to have a coffee break, to speak with the guy or with the lady and say, you know, you could help to reach a consensus by saying what you would like to say. And I know what it is, so say it now. And you feel practically physically how a meeting is developing. When you cannot do that because you are with a screen, you just discuss with a screen and you see you see this sort of little images where you cannot look really to the faces and to the people themselves. In my job, that is more the job of a diplomat, and as I said, making the link between people, between institutions and between people, it's very hard and very difficult. So that was my general comment to this slide, but I can agree that engineers have less problems in order to fix what they have to fix during the COVID crisis. Of course, we all learned with dedicated workspace at home, with a lot of things. We all, including myself, try to at least to do our job the best we can, but it was not easy. And as I said before, I hope that we are getting soon to a better situation in order, at least for me and for other people, to do their job more easily. Of course, and this is true, we traveled less in ESA. We lost, you know, everyone says when you travel, you lose also time, and it's true, you lose time, but you do something else. You meet people somewhere else and you create a sort of link between a sort of contact between the people and yourself. Of course, this was also costing time, and the reduced travels helped also in order to better work and to stay at work and not to be in trains or in planes or in cars. That's true, and I have to confess that this is true. This COVID crisis had also an impact on the ESA headquarters. We have a project, you know, we had a building called Marionikis in Paris. This building needed to be reshuffled, so it will be, but we learned that the idea that someone had of the open space was perhaps not the better idea, because today open space is not so popular as it was before. And the COVID crisis learned a lot about how to reshuffle the building and how to handle with a new building. So strong constraints on industry, well, they still remain. You will have, as I said before, limitations on travels. You will have an increased global competitive pressure. and reduce injection of private capital. And this was, and I come back to the idea of Mama ESA and to the institutions, the fact that the private capital was a little bit, and is still a little bit missing, is giving also a responsibility to the institutional partners in order for them to be the one guaranteeing that companies could go on. So, way of working in the sector, of course it will change, that is clear, new management practices, digitalized processes. And I would like to stress this because everyone learned to work better with and to use the digital tools, and including myself, and this was already a success, because it's true that more and more in the actual world, we have to exchange data, we have to inform each other, we have to try to have a consensus also through the digital tools. And this is fine with me if it's not replacing completely the personal contacts and the way we organize ourselves. So this was the presentation of Eric, but I would like to end and to conclude with a more optimistic mode, perhaps, and in a more optimistic and inspiring mode. You know, working in space or working for space is not just working for technology or for science. You have in the space sector, in ESA, a lot of engineers, you have a lot of scientists, but we need also in ESA, we need economists. I'm an economist myself, so it's a little bit publicity for my job. We need lawyers, but we need also historians and philosophers. We need people that have an horizontal view on not only space, but on the European challenges. European challenges, we all know, it's the Green Deal, it's climate change, it's digital divide, it's artificial intelligence, it's cybersecurity, and so on and so on. And for all these challenges, space can play and plays a role. So it's important to have people who understand that space can play a role and who are also very keen to understand the challenges of this sector, the challenges of climate change, the challenges of intelligence, artificial intelligence, and so on. So if you are an engineer or if you are a scientist, welcome to the space sector and to ESA or to EARSC. But also if you are a philosopher, and I will end with this, I have a good friend who is a director at Microsoft, and he told me recently, you know, Michel, we have given a job recently to 3 philosophers. I said, okay. And they understand informatics and they understand what Microsoft is doing. No, but that's not the problem. The problem is that they are there to give their view and that we can be inspired by what they think about the world. And this is going to bring a change to how Microsoft is dealing with the world. And I thought this was very, very important. So thank you all, and thank you, Dominique, and thank you, Geoff.
Thank you, Michel. And I can certainly echo the impact that ESA had and the role they played in helping the sector industry. ESA has a role to support the European industry, and that was very, very effective during this this period, and several measures were taken. I also very much echo this this message. There are many, many different types of jobs in the sector, so it doesn't have to be even technical. There are other types of jobs. I talked about the change from research to business. Many, many opportunities. There was a question regarding coming to work in the sector, and the opportunities that might be available through Galileo and through Copernicus. Any comments, Michel?
And the question was precisely?
How somebody from this is somebody outside Europe but is interested to work on Copernicus and Galileo, how can they pursue a career?
Well, or in industry, and I think this is one of the better ways in startups. And I would insist on data, because the big change in space since the beginning, you since 75, I myself since 85, the big change in space is that, of course, we are doing hardware, of course, we are in programs and in projects, but the big difference is that tomorrow, more and more, it will be linked with data and with information. I think that it was Nelly Cruz who said, data is the new oil of our economy, and data is, in real terms, the new oil of our economy. So I would influence them and ask them to put their skills into the development of a new data company, new creation of data and of added value data in space.
Yes, I agree. We sometimes talk about big data, and the data for Copernicus is one of the biggest sets of data that there is in the world. I think the only bigger one is CERN. CERN, when they perform their experiments at CERN, and there the volume of data is so great that they have to decide beforehand how much they're going to throw away because they just can't capture it. It's enormous. Any questions on the floor?
Yeah, so working for the ESA office in Brussels, how do you see the relationship with the Commission and the European Union in the future?
Positive, because there is no choice. I mean, if you are in charge of a job where you have to build a bridge and a link between two institutions, or you believe in it and you stay in the job, or you don't believe in it and you do another job. So I think we should build on it. But it's what I said before, it's often a question of relationships. You have the institutions, they have all the rules, okay, we all know that. But how do you build the relationships between two institutions? By people buying from people. I was, before entering into space, I was at Bull in the informatic company. And I had a boss, and he told me, okay, Michel, you are leaving, you are going to the cabinet of Verhofstadt at that time. But he said, okay, if you have to buy a computer later on, you will buy a computer, a Bull computer, because I'm your old boss and you know me. But if I leave Bull and if I'm tomorrow working for IBM, what do? I say, well, as I appreciate you, I'm going to buy an IBM computer. And that's exactly what I want to say. People buy from people. So it's very important to make this link and these contacts with people, and institutions will follow, if I may say so, because they are important, and I don't neglect the importance of an institution. But what is even more important is the dynamic you can create between people.
And maybe just to add, in the sense that we will shortly have an EU space program, which will be the first time. We have a European Space Agency, Michel represents, but it's not the same Europe as the EU. But ESA works, as well as for the member states, is working for the EU and will work on the EU space program. So this is an important step forward in Europe, and again, is going to create a lot of new opportunities in the future.
And if I may, with this European space program, the more money the Union gets for space programs, the better it is for ESA, because we have to build something together. And so the fact that the Union gets more money is for us a very good sign that space is a political priority. And if space is a political priority, it is a priority in the Union, it is a priority in ESA, it is a priority everywhere.
Thanks, Michel. I think we perhaps move on. If there are further questions, we'll save them for the end. So the second part of our session now, we have three speakers from different parts of the sector. Firstly, I'd like to introduce Andre Jadot, who, as well as being a director of EARSC, is the CEO of Eurosense, a company here in Belgium. Again, Andre introduced himself earlier. He's been through various positions in the industry and has a strong industrial perspective. And Andre is going to talk about the added value of the integration of different remote sensing data. Andre, the floor is yours.
Everybody, and thanks a lot, Dominique, for organizing this event. It's really remarkable. I think it's 6-7 days in a row, 8. So it's even more than 1 week. 7 + 1, 8 days in a row. Very impressive, and a very impressive setting also for the people present here attending in this Bibliothèque Solvay, and also for the many people attending remotely. So really congratulations for this big, impressive job. So I will present different applications. So I think there is something wrong in this presentation. Wait a minute. So I don't think that's the presentation that I sent. That's another one, I think, this one. Just going to check for a moment. Else we move to your screen.
Topics. And that. Andre Jadot here. Wait, it's coming.
Yeah, perfect.
I have to share now.
You want me to look at the code?
Share the screen. Wait. Voilà. Yeah. Please.
Perfect. Thanks a lot. So the presentation, I will present it in 6 different chapters. So we can move indeed to the second one. So we will have to display in team.
Okay.
Yeah. So you go. Yeah, you can go to the next one. Yeah. Perfect. Good teamwork, Dominique. So I will present in 6 different points. I will go quickly over it because we can go directly to the next slide. So short presentation on Eurosense next. So as Geoff indicated, we are one of the companies as we are based in Belgium. And if you want to grow, and if you're in Belgium, you have to go international because Belgium is a small country, 10 million inhabitants. So we quickly grew, we expanded our offices. We started in '64, and then we quickly expanded to the neighboring countries, to the Netherlands, to Germany, to France. And immediately after the Iron Wall went down, early 90s, we went to Poland, Romania, Bulgaria, Slovakia, and Hungary. So we have 10 subsidiaries, real offices, local offices in these 10 countries, and that is quite unique in Europe to have a remote sensing company with so many companies abroad. So I used to travel a lot before the lockdown. Now that it's more reduced. Normally today I had a meeting today in Berlin with Intergeo that was cancelled. Then there was another meeting in Magdeburg, but that was only for the German attendees, because if you travel now to Germany, as a Belgian citizen, they just put you in quarantine as soon as you cross the border. So it's really getting quite complicated to travel, but luckily we can have meetings like this, which are very suitable also. So we have expertise in both optical and radar data. We are also the distributor of the Esri software for the GIS. In total, 140 people, a turnover approximately 20 million euros a year. And as I said, we have been, the company was founded in '64. So we celebrated this year already our 56th anniversary. Next, yeah. So international cooperation is crucial. As Michel said previously, the contacts are very, very important. So we are founding members of 2 associations, a founding member of EASY that was created last year. That's the European Association of the Aerial Surveying Industries. Common actions towards air traffic control, EASA. And then also Eurosense is a founding member of EARSC. And here you see the advantage of, one of the advantages of the association is you can have meetings really at a very high level, like here the meeting last year with in Frascati at Esrin. Normally we should have had the same meeting this year, last week, but that also happened, but that happened then in a remote way. Yes, next one. Next one, yeah. So these are some important dates of the company. You can go quickly over it. Next. So in the 70s, we started already in color, infrared. Next. In the 80s, important date that starts really with the satellite data, Landsat and Spot. And at that time, we were also one of the founding companies of Spot Image. We were one of the shareholders, probably Michel remembers that step. And we started with the Korean land covers, the first land use maps in the 80s. Portugal, Luxembourg, East Germany. Next. Many programs on agriculture that was also pointed out by one of the previous speakers. I think there was people of the GSA. Agriculture remains one of the most important markets for remote sensing data, and that is still the case now. I see now also in the national programs that are created by the states, the member states, that there is a lot of focus on agriculture. So if you have some background knowledge as students in agriculture, it's very useful because you can immediately propose remote sensing data for agriculture applications. Next. And then different projects for ESA, projects in tomography, analysis of trees. Next. And then different projects for the European Environmental Agency, for the European Commission, and also Horizon 2020 projects. And I can show it with some examples, and I will go more in depth afterwards. Next, next, and the next one. Okay, so I will go now a little bit more in detail on the program of the CAP, the Common Agriculture Program. Next. So it's we got a contract last year in the Walloon region. It's a southern part of Belgium. As you know, the farmers get subsidies when they take certain measures for their farming. Of course, when you speak subsidies, you also speak monitoring. As soon as there are finances involved somewhere, it's always good to have monitoring. And there, remote sensing can offer a lot. So we check yearly, in fact, the status, we check yearly if all the declarations are correct. We take a sample, a significant sample, and we will check if these declarations are correct and if the farmers can get their subsidies. So we can go to the next slide. So we receive satellite imagery. So the Walloon region gets the satellite data from the JRC. We check if the quality is okay. You see here, for example, on the left, you see that there are clouds on certain satellite data. So these data have to be redelivered. We need to get other data in order to do the control. And if all data are correct, we do the auto rectification of the satellite data, and we use them in the next phase. Okay, next. And here is, in fact, a quite interesting slide. It's quite complicated just to show. Also, I discussed it this morning with our project engineer. I said, should I leave this slide on? The purpose is, of course, not to go in depth in this one, but it's just to show how complex it can be once you get the satellite data and when you want to propose the solution and to really check is the farmer's declaration correct or not, it becomes quite complex. The good news is that, in fact, the declarations are quite correct. 96, 97% is correct. There are only 3 or 4% cases of frauds which are detected. And so now the Walloon region and many other member states will use from this year on and in the future also more and more Sentinel data in order to apply them in this program. This program is really remarkable. It's probably the biggest program in Europe where Sentinel data are used, and very important, they are used every year. Every year there are declarations, every year they must be controlled. Next. 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 So what is important is, I believe very strongly, and our company believes very strongly in the integration of data. So we use airborne data and we use spaceborne data. It's a little bit a pity often that the two businesses are a little bit like two silos. There are not a lot of bridges between both, but it's really important when you want to propose a solution to use data from different sources. So you see them here on the left, you see existing maps, airborne data, LiDAR data, hydrographic data, UAV data, drone data, radar data, optical data. So that is really the key. And when you see to the next slide, you can really propose the best solutions when you can integrate these different data. Because our customers, in fact, they are looking for solutions for their issues. So you have the data, but on top of the data, you have to provide an added value. Next. Next, so some examples. This one is a detailed analysis of the health status of trees. We are here in Brussels, at least the ones who are attending here the conference. And we have many trees around the avenues, and we can monitor them in a remote way. We can see, are the trees in good shape or not? And this is very important for the environment and for the security. Next. Also, other kind of trees, it's a forest monitoring. It's very important. We did projects in the frame of RED, reducing emissions from deforestation, forest degradation. There are very big issues in the Amazon, in Congo, because of deforestation. And thanks to remote sensing, we can get data in order to monitor this. And this is very crucial because it's really the lungs of the planet. And if nobody is monitoring them, things are happening which are not good at all for the planet. So next. This is a program that we did we in a part of Congo. And you see in detail, we used both satellite data and airborne data in order to reduce, in fact, the deforestation and at least monitor what is happening. Next. But it's not only in Congo and in Brazil that we have issues about deforestation. Even in the European Union, certain countries, and we have practical examples here, like in Slovakia, you really have issues of deforestation in these countries. So it's very important that thanks to the Sentinel data, these things can be monitored and so that people who are doing the illegal logging, at least that they know that what they are doing is not unnoticed. Next. So these are the applications that I showed previously are more on the environment, and it's very important now with the Green Deal, which is one of the big focuses of the European Commission. But also security is very, very crucial. Flood mapping, and there you really have, with the use of satellite data, you can get very detailed data in order to prevent potential floodings. What happened last 10 days ago in France, for example, you had these big floodings in the southeast. This is an obvious application where with data you can try to prevent this kind of big dramas that are happening. So my final slide, if you go one back. Yeah, perfect. So what I see personally is, and I already pointed out when we had the introduction, I really see clearly an increasing demand for geodata. And it's in order to help the decision makers, they have to take the best decision possible. And you see a growth in data everywhere, and you see also a big growth in geodata. So to the students in the room, to the students listening remotely behind their computer, I see many job opportunities in our sector. That is for sure. And sometimes people say, but you already made these maps. Why are you redoing these maps? The reason is that people want to have more and more precise data and also more and more frequent data. I would say 20 years ago when we had a map 5 years old was okay. But now the young people, they do not accept that. A map has to be updated. It's like if you are driving in your car and at a certain moment, the Waze brings you to a certain street and it's closed, you will be angry because you want to have something which is up to date, else you won't use it. So we also feel that pressure in our market. Our customers want to have up-to-date data, and you see programs like in certain countries where they did the mapping every 6 years, they went down to 3 years, and now they go to a yearly update. So the dual knowledge, spaceborne, airborne, I pointed out, and also very important, the software knowledge. If you are good in software, then you have certainly an added value, because if you have good knowledge in IT, you get your data, you can play with the data, you can play with the layers, you can combine with databases, and then you find a job like that. Then immediately the industry, the public authorities, they will certainly welcome you. So your knowledge in software is certainly important. So my last slide, and that is my wish to you, all the best with your future career in space. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre. Is that working? Hello? Yeah. Thanks, Andre. Great, and hopefully inspire a lot of our audience to join us. We'll come to questions afterwards, I think, and we should certainly develop the theme on how new entrants can join and what advice we can give them. But the next speaker is not on the stage with us, is in remote. Eric Hallot, who is head of remote sensing and geodata at ISSep, the institute. Ah, pardon. Eric, I'm really sorry. We didn't have a chance to introduce ourselves at the beginning. But I saw a picture earlier, which I thought was, anyway, leave aside my excuses. Eric is head of remote sensing and geodata at ISSep, the Institut Scientifique de Service Public on Wallonia. He has a long career in geography. And without further ado, I'll hand over to Eric to talk to us about public services, suppliers, customers, and funders of spatial data and services. Floor's yours, Eric.
Okay. Good evening. First of all, I want to give a big thanks to Dominique because he's very happy to be here. But I'm also very happy because you give to public authorities also the possibility to explain the other side of the space market, and thank you for that. Okay, hello everyone again. I'm going to take you a few minutes tonight to talk to you about how satellite, and more specifically how satellite data are used every day in public services. I don't have the opportunity to tell you about all the uses and all the actors, and that's why I will try to give you a small overview through my vision and through the one of my institution. Okay, what about me? I'm 44 years old and have had a fairly linear education, a master's degree, PhD, and postdoc in physical geography and geography. And even if when I go to my postdoc in Montreal, it was also in hydrography and rivers. So not very satellite, not very Earth observation, you might say, but I say that geography leads to everything. So about my career paths, maybe you can say it was a good start because I started in geomorphology and remote sensing lab. And after I felt in rivers during 30 years, and as well as researchers and lecturer at the University of Liège. It was at the end of 2015 that I returned to my first patient. I left university for the Scientific Institute of Public Services in the brand new Remote Sensing and Geodata lab. This institute depends of the Walloon administration and provides advice and support to Walloon authorities and Walloon government, and also private companies in the environmental meteorology. We are more than 320 workers in the whole institute and different profiles. It's doctors, engineers, geographers, geologists, bioengineers, and technicians. We work on different parts: water, air, soil, subsoil, waste, risk, and finally also Earth observation. The small unit I lead specializes in the acquisition, processing, analysis, and enhancement of Earth observation data. We develop small decision support tools for administration, public entities, private clients. And in the recent years, we have focused on data management, land use, change detection, land use, land cover mapping, and also materials detection. And finally, we spoke about that in a few minutes, about also development cooperation in Africa. As already said, we are a very young unit. We start in 2015, and since then we have more and more projects with various funding. It should be noted that even though we are in a public institution, we don't have any annual grant. Each project have to be defended and obtained, like in a university lab. Currently, we are 7, and I hope in a few weeks, 8 people in our teams. And we are geographer, geomatician, bioengineer, geologist, and data scientist. Okay, not many people use satellites every day, but many people use satellite data every day. In Earth observation, and especially on small territories like Belgium or Wallonia, other data from above are also used. We spoke about a few minutes about aerial photo, and from the highest to the lowest, we use satellite data, even free, like Copernicus or Landsat, and also from commercial, like Airbus, Planet, and so on. If we change scale, at the regional level, we use orthophoto, and they are provided by our regional authority. And as we say just a few minutes, thanks to Eurosense also, they provide this data. And if we go to, and we lose again altitude, we reach the level of drones, which have now a very large autonomy, interesting payload, and also a lot of diversified sensors. So, what about this data? I will quickly present you some projects using this data and in collaboration with different partners. They are most often applied research projects to produce new data, new services, and decision support tools. The first one has a very unpronounceable name. It's EU for LULUCF. Yes, that's what. It is an internal funded project using Sentinel-2 data in collaboration with the Air and Climate Agency. Maybe you know that Kyoto Protocol calls for an annual national inventory of greenhouse gas emissions. This inventory includes the quantitative monitoring of emissions related to the land use change, and forestry sector. So what? It's LULUCF. The current inventory is based on a regular point grid on which a land use diagnosis is automatically performed using several thematic maps. However, after geoprocessing, a number of points remain without classification and have to be manually classified. This requires manual intervention and it's time-consuming with a high cost. With this project, we try and we develop a method for extracting this information from satellite data and time series in order to facilitate and improve this data collection. Other kind of data, here it's Sentinel-1 and Sentinel-2 and also IRL picture. It's a project funded by BELSPO. BELSPO is the Federal Agency for Science Research. And this project was led in collaboration with the Royal Military School here in Brussels. The objective is to produce a service as automated as possible to create alerts when a change of land cover is detected on former industrial areas or on brownfields. The goal is to simplify and to make more efficient and update of the inventory of this area. This work allows to reduce the number of days when field agents go on the field. Last project we finished is a project in collaboration with the University of Louvain and University of Brussels. And with this project, we change scale. We mainly use aerial data and are supplemented only by satellite data. It is a project financed by Walloon administration, and the objective was to provide an operational and reproductive methodology for land use and land cover mapping in Wallonia. The method used two complementary processing chains, one by object-oriented classification of multispectral data and 3D data at very high spatial resolution, and the other one by pixel classification of Sentinel-1 and Sentinel-2 data to predict this map. And maybe in a few weeks, all this new data will be provided on the portal of the Walloon region. Here, maybe for people who understand French, it's not me that choose the name of this project. It's a project on completely different thematic. We work on the scale of our roof, on the roofs of house. It's a project financed by the Environmental Healthy Plan of Walloon region in collaboration with the French National Office for Aerospace Studies and Research, and also of the French Atomic Energy Commission. The basic idea is that roofing materials can be a source of pollution to human health, like asbestos roofs of metallic roof. The project aims to characterize and quantify these materials. We made a first quite good test with aerial photos, and we obtain also, with direct measure, a spectral library of the different materials of the roof. And the objective is to use now a very more precise satellite data in spectral high resolution, or maybe also a hyperspectral image. Okay, we go down, and we finish now with a very small-scale project with drones. This project, we started with Vito in Flanders, and now at ISSep we have all the equipment and also 2 pilots at the institute. In this project, we test different sensors, visible, thermic, hyperspectral, in order to realize a 3D follow-up of land field, and also to try to detect the type of waste, and also to follow up the methane leaks in membranes or pipe. Well, it's not possible to present everything, but it's clear that the wide and open dissemination of a large number of space and Earth observation data is a key element for the implementation of future projects and new opportunities. For us, one of these opportunities has been to accomplish one of the tasks of the public services is the supporting development. We are currently working on Earth observation thematic with 4 Central, East and North African countries. It is especially in terms of training and prototypes that we are working on a public services to public services model. The projects are various, from the use of remote sensing for monitoring small agricultural water reservoirs to the change detection or the urban mapping. In addition to professional opportunities, this is also a true human opportunities to work in cooperation. I will end my presentation with collaboration, and more specifically, collaboration with private companies. The private companies allow us to increase in skills, the development of new tools, and access each other to new markets. I will present 2 last projects, not focused on data, but focused on methods, and in particular, artificial intelligence. Maybe you remember the day we organized in 2019 dedicated to EI for EO and specifically to Copernicus data. This day was organized in a wall of Copernicus Relay in Wallonia in collaboration with Skywind Clusters and Spacebell. The overall activity of the A for Copernicus Day was to bring together international experts to build a new community. And now, Wallon region push a new project called Tremplin IA, and we try to work with Oscar Spacebelt and us on a new project. And this new project aims to develop a small interactive web platform integrating remote sensing, artificial intelligence, and also GIS tools. Here, the prototype is based on deep learning to detect swimming pool detection. Finally, last but not least, the Intello project is a self-financed project in collaboration and with EPFL, École Polytechnique de Lausanne and Oscar. And this project wants direct to integrate the following collaboration and technical contribution to integrate EI into Walloon environmental monitoring tools. This method will be applied to 7 existing projects in ISSep, and 4 of these projects will be directly linked to Earth observation. So, in short, in summary, the message I want to convey to you tonight is the following. In public services, we look also for EO skills. We co-finance data acquisition and project. We carry out diversified research team and project. And we collaborate with other research center, university, and private companies in Belgium and abroad. And if I can do small advertising, we are looking for people from jobs and also for internships. Last one. I finish. I thanks for your attention. But if you look at the last picture, Earth observation is also validation on the field. Okay, so even on the shore of the Lac Kivu in Rwanda, I take myself this picture last year. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Eric. There's a question for you, but I would like to hold it and wait until after the last presentation, which will be given remotely by Benoît Vivier. I trust that Benoît is with us.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Great. So Benoît is with the European Emergency Number Agency. He's the Public Affairs Manager, and I imagine that we'll return to Galileo and GNSS topics. Benoît, I'll give you the floor.
Thank you very much, Geoff, and thank you for the opportunity to present here. First of all, can you see my screen correctly?
Yes, we do.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, I'm sorry that I cannot be with you. Cannot be with you today, but it's great that we can still find a way to make it remotely. So I'm here to present to you a use case, basically, on how space can basically be a solution to problems of like everyday's lives. And here I will talk about how space can help the emergency services in finding people who call the emergency services, basically because they're in a situation of distress. First of all, a few words about me. So I'm basically, let's say, a lobbyist for the European Emergency Number Association. So it's an NGO that works on basically improving the functioning of emergency services. And one of the things that we look at is how which technologies we can use to basically solve to help the public safety professionals and help them in the fields to save lives, basically. And we also try to put them in contact and share the best practices. And myself, actually, as you can see on this slide, I have no background on emergency services, and I have also no background on space because I studied politics and EU affairs. And so when I studied, I had like no clue about like whether like you know what we've been discussing today, like how like the different solutions that space can bring and so on. Is I learned everything throughout my job because at our organization we just ask the questions very regularly, is like how can we help the emergency services, and then you realize that like space is one of the solutions actually, and there are many ways space can help the emergency services and can help them to save lives, basically. And a few examples have already been given today when it comes to Earth observation. Of course, it can help to prevent and to address some disasters when they are happening. So yeah, that's how I got involved in space. And of course, I follow the issues for ENA, the European Emergency Number Associations, mostly the legal and advocacy issues. So basically to improve the legislation, and then other specific projects that we are working on. So I'm going to talk now about the issue of emergency calls and basically locating the emergency services, locating the emergency calls, how to make sure that when you call 112, that the emergency services will be able to know where exactly you are. Yeah. So there are actually many ways when you think, just think for a second, like you find yourself in an emergency situation and you have to call the emergency services. So you would dial 112 or any like national emergency number. But for many different reasons, you are not always able to describe where exactly you are. And that is a problem because when you call the emergency services, the first question they will ask you is, where are you? And if you think, sometimes you're just in an unfamiliar area, you just don't know the place where you are. And it's hard to describe it or to provide a very precise address of where you are. That happens also very often, is you can be in a situation of psychological shock. So, you know, like there's somebody having a heart attack next to you, and you're just in a situation of panic. So you can't really speak or think rationally. So those things happen quite often. Sometimes you just don't know or can't read the name of the street. That also can happen. And what is very common is actually the situation where you are in a place that has no address. Can be because you went like mountain hiking or mushroom picking, for instance. You got lost and you just can't describe where you are because like everything looks the same. And then the emergency services would have a hard time finding you if you just can't explain where you are. You have also sometimes situations where you're doing tourism. Well, it's not that happening that much at the moment, but in normal life, it did happen. That you can read the name of the street, but you just can't read it in the language of the country that you're visiting. These pictures are like real cities. One is in the UK, the other one is in New Zealand. So if you find yourself there and you have an emergency, good luck to read the name of these cities. Sometimes you have situations where people calling the emergency services, they don't want to say where they are, and that is quite common. For instance, in the situations of suicidal callers. So somebody calls the emergency services saying like, I want to commit suicide. So obviously they don't want to say where they are. Have also some situations of call dropping. You're in the middle of the emergency call, and before you have time to say where you are, the line cuts for many different reasons. So that can also happen. And you also have situations, for instance, of children calling the emergency services. So either they don't know the address, or they can't describe properly where they are. So as you realize with these examples, and these are just a few examples, but there are many different examples that show like how difficult it is to say precisely where you are when you call the emergency services. So which makes us wonder, like, how are we located technologically when we call the emergency services? And when you call from a landline, there's not a lot of problem because your address will basically be provided to the emergency services. So for instance, when I opened my internet account here in Belgium, they asked me like for my address. And if I use the landline phone to call 112, then they will directly know my address, so they can intervene. But there is a problem when you call from a mobile phone, obviously, because when you call from a mobile phone, you're usually not at home, or you can be outside of home, let's say. So how are we located? Well, in basically every country of Europe, and in the old systems, basically what we've had in Belgium for many years, you basically located through the antenna to which your phone is connected to, which is very imprecise. It's 2 kilometers in average of precision. So 2 kilometers is just not sufficient to find somebody who really needs help. Like, think just for a second, like from where you are to 2 kilometers is really a lot. And if an ambulance has to find you in a certain amount of time, it's just not possible for the ambulance to come and save you on time. So that is a problem for mobile phone. And if I may say, it's a problem that is increasing. We notice now that about 70% of emergency calls in Europe are originated from a mobile phone. So it's a big majority of calls coming from mobile phone. And as we've seen, it's not always easy to get a precise location, be it from a technological perspective, but also be it from the caller, who's not always able to describe where it is. And for instance, you can see here a figure from the United Kingdom, which, well, now actually dates back to 5 years ago, but there were like many incidents that involved searches of more than 30 minutes because the caller was unable to give the location. And 30 minutes is really a lot, and it can make a difference between life or death, just because the technology and the caller were not able to give a precise location. So a question that comes to mind is that now we all have a smartphone, or basically almost all have a smartphone, and the smartphone has location capabilities that provide great precision, actually, thanks to basically what is provided from the satellites mostly. So what if we could use this data that is in our smartphone to basically locate the emergency calls and send this data to the emergency services. Well, that's the base of the solution called Advanced Mobile Location, which I'm going to describe to you right now in very brief words, because I don't want to bore you with technical issues. But basically, how does AML work is very simple. It's whenever you call the emergency services, it can be through 112 or through a national emergency number. Here in Belgium, we also have the call number 101, for instance. There can be several emergency numbers, but whatever your phone detects that there is an emergency happening, so it will automatically activate AML. You don't have to do anything. And when the call does activate this protocol, then it will start to search automatically for your location, exactly as if you would open the app Google Maps. It would try to establish communication with the satellites to find where you are. If you're outside, otherwise you can also be located with Wi-Fi. So this can obviously take a few seconds to determine a precise position. But when this is done, the phone will basically just send an SMS to the emergency services with your location, just based on the satellites. So the SMS is very basic. It contains, I will show an example here. This is the SMS that is sent to the emergency services. You can see the second and third entry is basically the latitude and the longitude. And the radius, the fourth entry, is basically how precise this is. So in this example, you have somebody who's located within 10 meters, which is much better when there's an emergency. So what you need to remember is that here everything is automatic. Whenever you call 112 or any emergency number in your country, it will work. It will just send an SMS to the emergency services with whom you're speaking to, with your latitude and your longitude. So it gives very impressive data. And I will show you a few examples now to show you what a difference it makes to use basically data provided by satellites compared to data provided by the antennas. So here is some tests and actually some real examples that were done in the United Kingdom. So first of all, here it's a rural area. So somebody calling the emergency services before the UK had AML, the emergency services would get a circle that you can see here on the left of the screen with this green circle, which is particularly imprecise. So you can see basically more or less in which town the caller is, but you can't find much more information. While you can see on the right with AML, actually you're able to pinpoint from which house the caller was making the call, which is really impressive. And of course, it can really help the emergency services to intervene directly and save the person. If you go to urban area, then usually the location through the network antennas is a bit better. Usually it's about 200-300 meters. But you can see here, it was the city of Glasgow, that actually there's still many streets within those 200 meters. And it's hard to find in the green circle that you see on the left, it's hard to find exactly in which building the person is. While with AML, what you see here on the right, you have this blue circle that shows you exactly in which building. Of course, still then you need to find from which floor, etc. But that's already a considerable gain of time for the emergency services. And another example, that's the last one I will show, because I quite like this one, because from an emergency services perspective, you can see on the left that if you get a location that is the one provided by this green circle, the ambulance can find a lot of time to find the caller, because you don't know on which side of the river to intervene, basically, and that can result in a lot of time lost. While if you see in the blue circle on the right, that when you know directly in which building the person is, of course you can directly send paramedics there and intervene, and it's a considerable gain of time once again. So yeah, that is a bit more or less how the technology works. So now you would wonder, like, how can we benefit from it, or where is it activated? So nowadays it works on all Android and Apple smartphones. in the following countries. So it covers something like half of Europe. Actually, this map shows most of the countries that have AML, but there's still a few countries that where the deployment of the technology is a bit it's kind of confidential. So I could not really include them on this map, but at the moment, AML is activated in 19 countries in the European Union and 29 in total in the world. So this is increasing quite regularly. So AML is quite a new technology. It's only 4 years old, something like that. So it's quite new, and we see that more and more European countries are deploying this technology to basically help us to help the emergency services to save us. And I see I'm running quite out of time, but I just have a few examples that maybe you will see when you receive the slides. It's just these are real life examples where the use of this technology helped emergency services in some countries to save the people. We can see here some situation with lost hikers who just obviously got lost and they couldn't say where they are. So AML could find them. There was a similar case with a caller in panic in Ireland. We had call dropping also in Ireland. Cases, as I say, of children who didn't know their address that was in Lithuania. We had also some language issues that I was also describing in Finland. Some callers also with mental disabilities that could be saved thanks to AML in the UK. Suicidal calls, a car accident in Slovenia. And yeah, that's it for me. So thanks a lot for your attention, and I'm always available to respond to your questions.
Thank you, Benoît. So we open the floor for questions. There's one in the question answer. So if other people want to put their questions either into the Q&A session in Zoom or in the room, then we're very happy to take them. But firstly, Eric, a question regarding internships and full-time jobs. You wanted to respond to that.
It's ready? Will do. I do? Okay. The easiest is our own website, is ISSep.be, or on the social networking. So it's direct on the website.
You can also look at our website. We have, and there are a number of other websites. I guess maybe we can supply you with links and you can put them into the switch to space. Great. Okay. So any further questions? I wanted to pick up one point because maybe it didn't come across so clearly, but that it wasn't discussed. But this is a sector which involves both public sector and private sector. Space, I think, is one of the most complex domains which involves both public and private. You've got 2 representatives of the private sector here and 4 representatives, I think, from the public sector. In our studies in Earth observation, we consider that the market is roughly 50-50 between public and private. And this is, in a sense, normal because space and my domain, Earth observation, it has a natural interest for governments as a strategic asset, as an asset to be exploited, and purely for the public sector as a customer. So in facing your career choices, you're not constrained to working in business or public good. You even have the choice. And I think that's something which is quite unique. And you have an example here from Michel, who's moved between public and private sectors. I have as well. And so just an observation from the makeup of the panel. Anyone wish to add or comment?
So yeah, thank you very much for your presentation. I have just a comment, maybe a question. So to put you back in context, I come from a very small village with a lot of farmers. So when I told them that I would become an aerospace engineer, some of them were like, so why are you getting interested about space? Why do you want to spend money for space? We have so many things to do on the Earth. And I was aware, and just as you have shown, that investing for space is also investing for the Earth. And especially for the benefit of farmers. And those very farmers, they don't even know that space can be useful to them and that they are using it every day. So don't you think that one of the problems, one of the main issues with this public opinion is just miscommunication of, I don't know exactly where it comes from, but there's a big problem of communication. And if people don't like space, don't think that it's costing too much for no results, then in turn there's a political consequence. The politicians, they don't want to invest because it's not going to be good for their reputation, and so on and so on. So that was just a comment. So maybe you have your point of view on this.
I can certainly provide answers to that, but I imagine I'll let others respond.
Yeah. I'm completely agree with you, Jeremy. The problem of the space sector, the communication is too technical. And because it's too technical, it's very far from the people, very far from journalists. And I think that's the question. It's not a scientist, I think it's not engineers who must communicate. It's people who are working in communication, because it's so stupid. It's amazing that the people they are using satellites every day, as you said, and they don't know it. When I was in politics, when I said I'm really interested by space, I'm working with the space sector, and they say, oh, how can you do that? You spend all this money to nothing, and this money has to come back to us. But this money, and then when I answered, this money is come back to you, to the people. They don't believe it. So we have. If we want that politicians are interested by space and spend more money in space, we have to convince them that space is useful for everybody, for life on Earth. That's what I would like to explain to the space sector. And I explain all the time. I explain the same, but it's difficult to change the mentality. Yeah? Someone want to answer?
In the media, it's indeed very, very special. When I moved from Eurosense to Gatewing in 2010, and Gatewing was a startup active in drones. Everybody immediately drones, UAVs. Everybody I talked with got it, and everybody was excited, like saying, "Oh, this is an awesome business. This is amazing." We were on booths on 3 days. We had 500 leads. I'd never seen that before. People were so excited. They were just waiting in a queue, in a line at the booth. Because drones, I don't know, it was really so attractive. It's amazing. And when I went back from Gatewing back to Eurosense, it's very difficult indeed. It's a challenge to explain the business. I have here on my iPhone, I have an example, because sometimes it's easier, because then you can show an example. You show this is the data, the kind of data we start with. And then people, it's something like Google Earth. So you have certain things in the B2C, the business to customer, people can grab it. And in the B2B, it's business to business. It's really more complicated. As Dominic says, it's a permanent fight to really explain that people get it, what we are doing. And that's the reason I'm here today also, because it's a way to speak with the students. And the easiest thing is to say, I'm not coming, it's complicated. One thing is to come and to bring the voice and to bring the message day by day.
I will add, you know, sometimes I go in French we say service club, Lions, Rotary, and so, and I have a PowerPoint, and with very nice images of space, and I explain just services after services, and with, I think the image is really important, and not to explain too much technically. And when the speech is finished, they said, "Oh well, my God, space is so much services for us. We don't know that they are so astonished. So we have to communicate with very nice images, and space give us very nice images, few words, and then just explain services they can have by space."
Two points. Firstly, on value. I mean, you're exactly right. Firstly, on value. The Commission have done studies showing something, and ESA have done studies showing something like between a 4 to 10 to 1 payback ratio. So the macro studies show this. I was concerned the macro studies were presenting one picture, and I wasn't sure. So we initiated these micro studies that I showed 4 of in my presentation. If you look at EARSC, SEBS, SEBS, Sentinel Benefit Studies, you'll find it. And in there, what we're trying to do is to show one product, high value, and generally we're doing that. And that's for operational use of data. And it's about storytelling. We try to tell stories. We try to tell the story of what's going on and write it in an easily assimilatable way. But the second point is something I wrote a blog about a month ago. Because in doing these studies, we work with user organizations to understand what's going on. You know, where's the value they're getting out of the use of the products coming from satellite data. And 50% of the cases, I would say, we start the work and then something changes. Somebody changes job, their organization changes, they have a new boss, and suddenly they don't want to participate anymore. They're told they can't spend the time. And so we have to struggle to complete our story. And the story behind that is that the use is not institutionalized. It's maybe 1 or 2 people in an organization who are very keen, but the organization itself hasn't bought into the technology. And there, I think what Andre said was exactly right, because it's B2B. And if you think of a lot of if I think of Galileo and GPS technology, the managers, the people know. They know from their cars, they know from their phones, so they're familiar because it's a B2C technology as well as B2B. But for us in Earth observation, it's B2B largely. There are very few B2C applications. They're coming, and they will come more and more. So it's a question of educating and institutionalizing the use. That's my view. Anyone else?
Yes, thank you. As you said very rightly, Geoff, it's a storytelling. And this is very important, to tell a story. There was, I think it was financed by CNES, what happens if during one day there is no satellite flying? What is it? What is the effect on the meteorology and things we can see on TV, but we couldn't see during that day because there are no satellites in communication, in navigation, in positioning, in timing. And this is very important to tell people and to link, again, I'm coming back to my previous intervention, to link with people. When you look in Belgium, what happened during the flight of our 2 astronauts, Fremont and De Winne, you see really that people are interested when you speak to them, when you tell them, and when you tell them a story about people, a story about meteorology and the weather, a story about communication and their car, a story about everything but a story. And this is really important.
So we need good storytellers to come into the sector as well. Any questions? No? Anything from the panel? Dominic's telling me to complete.
Oh, yes, it's mine. Yes. Well, I will close this second edition of Switch to Space, and our next appointment will be in October 2022 for Switch to Space 3. But it may be possible that we will organize next year some webinars on dedicated topic. Well, we are thinking with Sabri about it, but we will see. But all the Switch team, join me, Mohamed, and me, but Sabri also, I will give him the floor after me, to thank our speakers, both past and present, for sharing with us and with you the exciting adventure of Switch to Space. Thank you, all of us, for participating. And my last word is, life is beautiful. Stay safe. Goodbye, and I pass the floor to Sabri.
Thank you very much, Dominic, for being very supportive to this kind of events. And thank you for all the speakers. I think it was 8 topics, extremely complicated. We have a total of 24 hours of recording. I think for the people who are participating, it's kind of a master degree. If they follow all the lessons and they understand exactly what's going on, they can do, it's almost, they can receive a diploma. But maybe we'll think about it in the future. I will not say anything more than thank you very much, everyone. It was a pleasure to have you all here. Thank you very much. That's it. We close. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Bye. Goodbye.